this fucking artist on earth right now. If that was his song, if it wasn't written by 50, it was his song, and he put it out right now, everybody be like, oh my God,
who the fuck
is this guy?
Yeah.
You just picture him looking like just perfect, like Cat Williams type suit on stage, you know, just going off, sweating, wiping his head with a towel, full blast.
Yeah, just like
you know?
Southern Deacon.
Fucking 9,000.
What if I told you that the most famous Be Kind lady in Hollywood, the woman who danced every single day on national television, handed out keys to brand new cars, and made audiences weep with pure, unadulterated joy, was actually presiding over one of the most feared and toxic workplaces in the history of entertainment? And what if I told you that Joe Rogan, the man who pulls zero punches on the world's biggest podcast, sat down and told his millions of listeners exactly what was really happening behind those soundproof studio doors long before the mainstream media had the courage to print it? Today we are pulling back the heavy velvet curtain. We are going deep because the story of Ellen DeGeneres is not the sanitized, daytime-friendly narrative you think it is. This isn't just a story about a talk show host losing her cool, it's a story about the industrial-scale manufacturing of a persona and the catastrophic explosion that happens when that persona finally hits a wall of reality. Buckle up, because the real Ellen DeGeneres is about to be revealed. For nearly 2 decades, Ellen DeGeneres was essentially untouchable. In the hierarchy of Hollywood, she wasn't just an A-lister, she was a cultural institution. The Ellen DeGeneres Show ran for a staggering 19 seasons, racked up more than 60 Emmy Awards, and became a daily emotional ritual for millions of viewers across the globe. Her stage was the ultimate validation for a celebrity. If you were on Ellen's couch, you had made it. But it wasn't just for the famous. Ordinary people, teachers, nurses, and struggling parents, had their lives changed on her stage. She funded dreams, wiped away tears, and danced every single day with a level of enthusiasm that suggested the world was a perfect place and she was its happiest citizen. Then there was the motto, 3 simple words that became her entire brand identity and a multi-million-dollar merchandising empire. Be kind to one another. She said it at the end of every episode, printed it on sweatshirts, and built a fortress of public goodwill on the idea that kindness was her fundamental core. For 19 years, the world worshipped the idea of her. But while the cameras were capturing sunshine in human form, the people standing just 5 feet away, behind the lights and the monitors, were living in a very different reality. In July 2020, while the world was already on edge, a report dropped that shook the foundations of the entertainment industry. BuzzFeed News published an investigative piece featuring the accounts of 36 current and former employees who described the complete, systematic opposite of Be Kind. They detailed a culture of fear, subtle and overt racism, intimidation, and even allegations of sexual misconduct involving senior producers. One former staffer remarked that while the show bore Ellen's name, she seemed shielded, or perhaps willfully ignorant, of the wreckage happening in her own house. But the most damning part was the claim that the Be Kind mantra was all for show. Let that sink in. The people who spent 10 to 12 hours a day with her said it was all a performance, a clever marketing strategy designed to move product and maintain ratings. According to them, the Kindness Queen was a character Ellen played for an hour a day, and once the red light went out, the character vanished. Imagine going to work at one of the most prestigious shows in the world and being handed a set of rules that feel more like they belong in a medieval court. Employees reported being explicitly instructed by their managers not to look at their boss. No eye contact, no direct speech. If you saw her in the hallway, you were expected to avert your gaze. Then there was the phenomenon known among insiders as the Ellen gaze. Former staffers described a specific look DeGeneres would give when she was displeased, a look so cold and sharp that it became legendary. One former employee described it as a queen searching for her next execution. While the audience at home saw the quirky, dancing host, the people in the hallway were literally bracing themselves for a look that could end a career. Former writer Greg Fitzsimmons later reinforced these allegations, describing Ellen as a control freak who oversaw an environment where crying in the hallways was a regular occurrence. This is where the narrative shifts, and Joe Rogan enters the story. Rogan addressed the Ellen situation with the kind of blunt, surgical precision that mainstream media was too afraid to use. He pointed to a psychological red flag: aggressive virtue signaling. Rogan's argument was devastatingly simple. he suggested that when someone sells kindness that aggressively, you have to ask what they are overcompensating for. He highlighted how Hollywood manufactures images to build impenetrable personas, arguing that the bigger the gap between the public saint and the private reality, the more violent the eventual collapse will be. To Rogan, Ellen wasn't a victim of cancel culture. She was a victim of her own artificial brand. The conversation reached a fever pitch when Rogan hosted NFL superstar Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers made a cryptic and highly controversial comparison, suggesting that the vibe on Ellen's set reminded him of Jeffrey Epstein's island in terms of open secrets and toxic power dynamics.
Champion shooter of those, the events that they have where it's timed or a shooter ready.
Yeah.
So I met him there. He seemed like a real nice guy. I didn't know anything about him back then. I didn't know much about his beliefs and views that were controversial until after he got killed. And then people started sending me stuff. And I was like, okay, what's the context of this? He shouldn't have said it that way. There was some ones that we've talked about before. One specifically, but look, the fucking guy, first of all, was 31 years old.
Yeah.
All right. When I was 31, thank God there wasn't like Twitter or especially when I was 21. Oh my God, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Judging like that's like that Nick Fuentes kid. He's like 26. Thank God. It didn't exist when I was fucking 21.
Dude, yeah.
I was a fucking moron.
While Rogan didn't necessarily agree with that extreme comparison, the damage was done. The clip went nuclear. Hearing Ellen's name mentioned in that context on the world's biggest podcast symbolized just how far her reputation had fallen. Back in the real world, the corporate machine was forced to act. Warner Media launched a formal internal investigation that confirmed employees were fired for taking medical leave, faced racist comments from senior staff, and lived under pervasive intimidation. In August 2020, 3 of the show's most powerful executive producers, Ed Glavin, Kevin Lehman, and Jonathan Norman, were ousted. They were the enforcers of the culture, and their removal was a public admission that something was rotten. But Ellen stayed. In September 2020, she delivered an on-air apology, taking responsibility for what happened at her show. The studio audience applauded, but the digital world was not as forgiving. Public apologies only work if the audience still believes in your core. And for millions, the Be Kind brand was now a joke. This scandal felt personal because of the hypocrisy tax. If you build your entire business on being a jerk and then you act like one, your brand is intact. But if you build an empire on being the kindest person in the world and it turns out you're a nightmare to work for, you've committed fraud in the eyes of your fans. You cannot preach kindness to the world while your staff is weeping in the break room. You cannot sell kindness boxes while your employees are terrified to look you in the eye. That isn't just bad management, it's a massive coordinated deception. In 2024, Ellen released a Netflix special titled For Your Approval. Instead of the humble apology many expected, she leaned into the mean persona and joked about it. She told the audience, "I got kicked out of show business because I'm mean. The Be Kind girl wasn't kind." That was the headline. The audience laughed, but the internet winced. It felt like the final mask had slipped. This wasn't a rumor anymore. This was the source herself confirming the irony. She even admitted that this wasn't how she wanted her career to end, but this is the way it's ending. Then came November 2024. Following the US presidential election, news broke that Ellen was leaving the United States permanently. TMZ confirmed that she and her wife, Portia de Rossi, had settled in the Cotswolds in England. Ellen later spoke to a British audience, stating that everything there was just better and that they were staying for good. The woman who was once the heartbeat of American daytime television had packed her bags and vanished across the Atlantic. In the end, Joe Rogan's role wasn't just to leak gossip, it was to expose the machine. The Hollywood machine takes real, flawed humans and processes them into clean, marketable products. Rogan's message was a warning: don't trust the performance. Ellen DeGeneres is currently living on a farm in the English countryside, tending to her chickens and saying life is better there. And maybe it is for her. But for the 36 employees who stood up and told their truth, no move to England changes the history written in those hallways. Ellen built her empire on 3 words: be kind. But she became the living proof that a brand is not a person. She danced, she smiled, and she gave away cars for 19 years. But behind the scenes, her own people called her terrifying. Joe Rogan didn't destroy Ellen DeGeneres, he just pointed out that the image was never the person. And that is why the fans can't look at the dancing the same way ever again.